Christians are going to have to seriously confront the question of why their religion is so easily co-opted by bad actors.
Every group has bad actors. Why are you always picking on Christianity? Is it because it bothers you so much? Maybe because there's truth that you're trying to deny?
Wow, that is quite the start. So much going on, both in failures and pure what the fuckery of this guy being a goddamn puppet. And yeah, I know, that's rich coming from a cartoon knight, but being a punk is way less effort, and at least when you see me, you know I'm definitely not for kids. This guy, I'm not so sure. So it's weird. But then we move on to the questions, and it's so much worse. You didn't even try to answer this question. He asked you why Christianity is so often co-opted by bad actors, and instead of saying, no, that's not true, or even agreeing but arguing how the benefits maybe outweigh that fact, you instead spit a useless tautology, as if that's a refutation. Of course every ideology has bad actors involved in it. What has that got to do with anything? It just comes off as an admission that you have no good answer to that. Perhaps the answer is because your religion is full of people who were shit at arguing a good point. Oh, and don't play the victim. Every single worldview gets criticized for everything. The fact that you're critiquing what could be argued as atheist talking points, does that suddenly mean you're secretly scared that atheism is a real true boy? You know, probably. Projection is a hell of a drug.
Well, let's dive right in and find out. This is part 6 of my Bible tab guide, and the category of today is all the bullshit inside the Bible.
Well, this'll be fun.
Certainly will be, but probably less for you than you think, because oh boy, are you about to make some of the shittest defenses of the Bible I think I've ever heard. I mean, I talk about intellectual laziness on my channel a lot, but this is going to be more like an intellectual coma.
Our first green bullshit tab is in the very beginning, Genesis 1 verses 12 through 19, where God creates vegetation before he creates the sun. And I sincerely hope you don't need me to explain why that...
Yeah, I kind of literally do need you to explain that. Why is it a problem for one day that plants don't have sunlight? Are you saying that all plants in the entire world would shrivel up and die if they didn't have sunlight one day? Really?
He didn't say that. You just implied he did because you clearly don't understand his point. Very smart of you. And also, you are assuming the old 7-day literal day trope and not the potential long creation that plenty of Christ bobs do go with, which is interesting. However, the point he's actually making, by my understanding at least, is the issue of the order of events, which demonstrates that whoever wrote the Bible didn't know anything about photosynthesis or cosmology, both of which, although one more so than the other, demonstrate that the sun came way fucking before any kind of vegetation. Otherwise, they would have definitely had the sun come before the plant to avoid that weird contradiction. Although matey boy with the highlighter could have expressed this with a far better example, being that the fucking light on earth was already there before the sun within the Bible, it having apparently nothing to do with the existence of light. And you know, it's actually kind of weird that you didn't bring that up as a, well, still shit, but at least looking like you've read any of the book counter-argument.
The next green BS tab takes us to Leviticus 11, where whoever the author was thought bats were birds.
Actually, the BS is the fact that you haven't looked into the original language. It literally means flying animal. We translate it as birds because typically it's true, but it literally means a flying animal. Go ahead, look it up.
Maybe, but they're still clearly categorizing them into the same group of things when they simply aren't the same thing just because they fly. Again, it demonstrates a clear lack of understanding of what things are and how they work. An understanding that to the creator of those things would have not only been known, but blatantly fucking obvious. So the fact that it's not even mentioned that bats have more in common with a rat than an owl is very suspicious. Almost like the book wasn't written or inspired by anyone with any kind of deeper understanding of reality.
But of course we know they're mammals.
Yeah, we do. The term mammal didn't exist back then. So you're going to fault them for not having our modern day classifications? Oh my goodness. Are you going to be a colonizer and say that everyone has to have your way of thinking? What if they wanted to classify all flying animals as birds? Who are you to say that's wrong?
It's not about the words they use, you cretin. It's about what it means. It's a taxonomy, one that, again, the authors of the Bible had zero insight into. And that red herring of colonizing, it's not a way of thinking. It's a scientific classification. This is just an obvious attempt to avoid the major point. It doesn't matter what words are used as long as they make sense. Classing bats as basically the same thing as birds because they fly does not make sense. And someone from the time, if they had known the difference, they would have stated that fact in whatever words they would have used. They didn't have the word because they literally didn't know, when according to the Bible, they fucking well should have.
Deuteronomy 14 verses 11 through 18 would have been a great opportunity for God to set the record straight. But instead, whoever wrote that, they also thought bats.
Nope, they just thought bats could fly. How about that?
Oh look, not addressing the actual argument again. How about that? Also, weird then that they included fucking ostriches in that list. You know, that famous flightless bird. So clearly they weren't just focusing on flight, but the type of animal that they thought it was, you absolute fuck knuckle. Which frankly, in this context, has a whole new meaning, since I'm almost certainly talking to a literal fist.
The heaviest gold crown is nearly 5 pounds, and the ACH with a rhino mountain nods is over 8. I know how killer that ACH.
Cool, better need some good neck strength.
Oh, don't get me started. I've been wearing this helm for so long my neck is starting to grow its own neck. I think I might need to see the doctor, and conveniently I'll spot them from miles away with this fucking thing.
But in 1 Chronicles 20 verse 2, David puts on a gold crown that weighs 129 pounds. Why didn't the Bible tell us King David had a 42?
My friend, I feel like most of the BS in this whole video is going to be pointing out the fact that you don't do research. Even ChatGPT could help you with this.
Ironic that you call everything he says bullshit when so far you have been an absolute BS foo master. And to recommend ChatGPT instead of some apparently definitive source is pretty weird, especially considering large language models and their proclivity for making up absolute nonsense, even when you feed them direct information to draw from.
So first off, it's not 129 pounds. It's actually closer to 75.
Ah, well, that's so much better. Instead of being nearly 20 times heavier than an incredibly weighty piece of equipment, or the best part of 40 times an already pretty heavy crown, it's only half those utterly ridiculous numbers, making them obviously only half stupid. That's way more plausible and logical and not a distinction with utterly no functional difference. That frankly only reinforces his argument and doesn't weaken it in any real way. A smart move, almost as smart as liking this video and subscribing to my channel. New videos every Wednesday and Friday.
And when it says he placed it upon his head, he holds it in place. He doesn't go around wearing it. No, Saul puts it over his head as a ceremony showing everyone he has the king's favor. Kings did not go around wearing crowns in their culture.
Well, it says he placed it on his head, but actually he walked around holding it up there saying, "Look at me! Me am the king now!" What the fuck are you talking about? Of course kings wore crowns. They are literally fucking hats. It's pretty much their entire purpose, to be worn. Where are you even getting this idea that ancient kings never wore their crowns? Because I'm pretty sure that you're making that up. Now, I am not saying that they fucking slept in the things, but they would definitely have worn them many times in many public settings. And the idea that one was even close to the weight that you yourself claim is utterly ridiculous and speaks to the fact that the Bible is full of weird, unnecessary lies. When it claims to be a tome of truth, that is a problem.
They did not have the technology to make a dainty little crown.
I'm pretty sure they did. Gold is not a difficult metal to work with, and frankly, had they the tech to make a gigantic fucking behemoth crown, I feel that's the more absurd feat than creating something a little bit more manageable. I mean, they didn't have to make the whole thing out of gold. They could have had like a mostly wooden one with gold plated onto the outside or something like that. And hell, how's this for dainty? This is a metal awl. It's a tiny little tool for making holes. And that was from 7,000 years ago. Thousands of years before your story. But you don't think they could make a round piece of metal with a similar thickness and a couple of flourishes on the fucking thing? Again, you just seem to be making up shit that doesn't make any sense. Instead of, what did you accuse the guy of? Not bothering to do any research? Dude, I can see your hypocrisy sticking out.
So the crowns that they carried around were only held above the king's head during ceremonies or when the king wanted to show favor.
Look, I'm not saying that there was no culture that practiced this odd little ritual that no one seems to have heard of, except for you apparently, but to claim it as a fact about crowns in general is fucking bizarre. Again, they are known to be worn. That's what they're for. The main common practice when it comes to royal headgear is that it in fact is something that they will be able to wear. I would love to know where you're getting this idea from, but I'm afraid it's going to be a classic case of, well, you know, I made it up. And that's not to mention that even if everyone did do this, that crown is still absurdly heavy. Can you imagine having to hover that shit for the equivalent of 2 cinder blocks as a small object over someone's head for any extended period of time? Well, it would be quite the flex, I'm not gonna lie.
The next BS tab is Numbers 13:33, where it says giants are real.
And they aren't. Now, I don't know if you're going to go, haha, and you say the tall humans aren't the real FNAF, I am very smart. Or that you're going to defend the idea of magically sired, gigantic humans that were well beyond the size and height of even the tallest of modern humans today. But neither is a particularly good look.
And they are so big that humans are like grasshoppers compared to them.
That's not what it says. Now who's being dishonest? The implication of the scripture is that they felt like they were grasshoppers in their sight. That's clearly how they felt about it because they were terrified. You can get that from the context.
Who said anyone was being dishonest? Well, apart from me to you, but you don't know that I'm here unless you're a witch. But for one, that appears to be what the text says. And the difference between are like and seemed are like seemingly the same fucking thing in this context. But ignoring that, it's one thing to say you felt really small compared to someone, than to say you're actually the size of a really specific creature compared to them. I don't know. Again, seems odd. And wait, so now they are exaggerating, but not before with the Insano crown that they didn't use as a crown, because no one does apparently. You really are tying yourself in knots here, mate. Fucking good job you made of fabric, or you could really do yourself a mischief.
And how do we know that? Because Caleb is ready to go conquer them. So clearly they were exaggerating.
Wait, I'm sorry, were they terrified or were they exaggerating? And did they not have God on their side? Why wouldn't they be able to defeat those giants anyway? With the sheer power of unjustified overconfidence alone. It's all just so weird that you're happy on one hand for the first 7 days to be literal days, and that God magic light into existence. But giants? Don't be silly. That was just a prank, bro. Your inconsistency is maddening.
There have been over 200 million fossils discovered, and not one is of a giant human.
Really? What about this? And what about this? And what about this? See, it really depends on how you define the word giant. If they were exaggerating, it's not that far-fetched at all.
Right, so you are going with, aha, tall humans exist. But let me stop you right there. Your average human at the time simply wasn't anywhere near that tall. Even amongst the tallest groups today, who are way taller, that is extremely unusual. So to claim that there was an entire tribe of 8, maybe 9 foot tall motherfuckers is a stretch so far, you're making Mr. Armstrong jealous. And again, you're just redefining things for your convenience instead of actually defending what the text says. Or better still, saying, yeah, those dumb assholes sure did like to make shit up. Oh well, God's still real though, lol. At least that would be somewhat respectable.
Joshua 10 verses 12 and 13 says that the sun stood still in the sky, but we know that the sun does not orbit the earth, so that means the earth stopped spinning. Do you think
it doesn't have to mean that at all? God is outside time and the creator of time. He literally could have suspended time just around them and allowed them to finish the battle. For a creator of the universe, that's not that hard to do.
Oh my god, you are just obsessed with having your cake and eating it too. This bit's literal, but they were just exaggerating here. Are you fucking kidding me with this shit? You know, biblical literalists are annoying and stupid and dumb and not very attractive, but at least they know what they believe. You don't seem to have a firm grasp on if the Bible is a bunch of absolute factual accounts or is just some stories some dudes made up. I mean, to me, the sun standing still in the sky, that would clearly be a fucking metaphor, not a real event. Probably for the idea that battle felt incredibly long and hard fought. Also, why does it just have to be around them? Wouldn't that fuck things up everywhere else they went afterwards? They would be bringing a completely different time zone with them. Seriously, you didn't have to make this dumber than it already was, but thank you anyway.
I've heard Christians tell me that this Bronze Age God has no limits. He can do anything that he wants at any time.
Yes.
But in Judges 1:19, he can't defeat soldiers that have chariots made of iron.
Wow, you are so dishonest, it's actually funny.
You know, you're right, it is dishonest to read the text as it's written. What he should do is pick and choose which text is meant to be taken literally and which ones were just a joke designed to make the book sound stupid for some reason. Also, it is very fun hearing you call other people dishonest, because it makes it sound like you genuinely believe that you aren't doing so. And now that is funny and sad.
Look, it does not say God couldn't do it. It does say the Lord was with Judah, the tribe, but they couldn't defeat the iron chariots. That's just a matter of fact. They couldn't do it.
Except it's not. And I don't just mean in the atheist way of because it's made up, innit? Depending on which version you read, it absolutely does say that. In fact, I was kind of confused why you were just straight up telling porcupines, because I hadn't brained this point earlier. But like with the ostriches, some of the portions don't mention them, but the one I read did, because I've been using the standard English version of the Bible. And I guess you're probably not. So when you're telling people they're being dishonest, do you even know where they're getting this? I bet you don't. Fuck, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't know that there were a ton of different versions. But which one is correct? Did God tell you? And it can't be all of them. They are markedly different. It's yet another issue with you picking and choosing shit. And even in this case, was he with them or not? I know if I could make my team win with magic, I'm gonna do that.
It doesn't say God couldn't do it. It says they couldn't do it. God does not deliver every victory to everyone the moment they want it. Sometimes he allows a process to happen, and that's exactly what happened here. This was their opportunity to go to the Lord and say, how do we defeat them? And what's funny about it is it's actually easy to look up. There was another time where they faced chariots of iron, and God actually did help them defeat them. They got stuck in the mud, and then, Israel wins. So you really should look up a lot more of these, bud.
Oh my god, I think he really doesn't know other versions exist. That's amazing for someone telling others to do research, when it's apparent he's done none outside of the copy of the Bible that he already owned, and that's it. What a fucking moron. Also, if God helps people to defeat others when they ask him to, well, you must know that doesn't happen. I mean, presumably you asked him to give you some good arguments, and they've all been fucking shit.
Next one I actually wish was true. It's Proverbs 10:3, where it says, God will not let the righteous be famished, but the most religious countries on earth are the most famished, and the least religious countries are the...
So you have two assumptions that makes two problems. First off, you don't understand what a proverb is. A proverb is not a hard and fast rule, it's a general rule. And secondly, just because you believe in a God does not mean you're righteous. So either you're an atheist or you believe all religions lead to the same God. And the problem is God does not view that way. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. So I'm sorry, but just being religious does not make you righteous. But again, it's not a hard and fast rule anyway. Go look up what a proverb is.
It being a proverb is a convenient way to say thing that never actually happens, but if it ever does by accident, we were right all along. And again, this is shit said in God's Bible. Is it a fact about reality, or is it some wishy-washy bullshit? What if instead you treat it all as wishy-washy bullshit, because that's exactly what it is. None of it is fact. None of God's magic tricks are real, because magic isn't real. It's all just a bunch of bullshit, because it is bullshit.
On that note, John 14 verses 12, 13, and 14 say, anything you ask in my name, I will do it. But apparently that doesn't apply to...
Well, I won't fault you too much for this one because even Christians don't understand what in my name means. In my name means to represent me. It's not a magic spell. It's not a magic phrase. It's not saying in Jesus' name, amen. That's not what it means. It literally means to represent Christ. So if you ask for something Jesus would ask for, then you'll get it. So now you're without excuse. Now you know what that means.
Wow, that's not great. You probably think that's a really clever dodge, but you just threw down an incredibly poorly thought out theological gauntlet. If anyone prays for war to end, if it doesn't happen, Jesus wouldn't want war to end. Cool. A starving family, a baby with bone cancer, me running out of whiskey, any of these terrible things that have the same moral value being prayed to be prevented. If it doesn't happen, it's because Jesus is a massive prick. Good to know.
And it also says that if you believe in Jesus, you can perform greater miracles than he did.
Again, trapped by English, huh? So in the Greek, it's greater as in greater in capacity. Jesus is one man. God became man, but still one being. He was no longer omnipresent. So there's more of us, so in capacity, we will do more, greater.
But he fed 5,000 people with bread, fish, and magic. If that were true, the most religious places on earth wouldn't have a famine.
And again, you're confusing all religions into one lump. That's your fault, not mine.
Oh my non-existo, it's like you are deliberately ignoring the substantive claims and going for irrelevant asides. Okay then, all Christian places. Never any starving people in places where Christianity exists. That would be the point. And yet Christians absolutely starve. And your own words completely refute your previous statement that Jesus was just some dude when he literally fed 5k people in one sitting. Have you ever worked in a kitchen? Even with the right equipment, enough serving staff, and God magic, that shit is a logistical fucking nightmare.
We covered famine, but what about disease? If we go to James 5, verses 14 and 15, we see that any church elder can heal any sickness magically. But if that were true, hospitals would hire priests instead of doctors.
No, it doesn't say they'll magically be healed. This is advice for what sick people should do. It doesn't promise a healing. Sometimes God says no. This is along the line of the Proverbs. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's a general concept. Even Paul mentioned how he had a thorn in the flesh that he asked God to remove, and God said, no, my grace is sufficient for you. So we can ask God anything we want, but he's welcome to say no because he knows better than we do. And as far as hospitals go, you should really look up John G. Lake. Yeah, God worked healing through him so well that the local hospital actually shut down. That's verified. Go look it up.
Well, aside from the fact that that just makes God sound like a massive, capricious asshole, what was that thing about John G. Lake? Because I did look it up, and all I can find is unsubstantiated, ahistorical claims about the guy doing that. And they're all from incredibly religious institutions that, of course, have nothing to gain from actually proving that it happened, because it almost certainly didn't. Maybe you should do some research outside of your super best friends club.
Only one part left to go, then the big giveaway.
Maybe the giveaway should be a Hebrew and Greek dictionary.
And that's it. And even your dunk at the very end doesn't make any frickin' sense. Surely he would need those to be as learned as you are. Good job, you dumbass.